Hey everyone, it's Dave here at Ultra Modern Ball, and today we are going to do a real PSA card evaluation. We're going to talk about whether or not these cards are ready to be submitted under a real bulk submission that I have coming up. And hopefully this will be useful to you as you assess your own cards for PSA submission. Now, I want to quickly clarify what the topic will be. This is not about the ROI on grading cards. This is not about whether you should send a PSA or BGS or anything like that. This is just about, are your cards condition-wise good to go to be sent in to be graded? And I'll go through the different criteria that graders tend to use, and I'm not an ex-grader or anything like that. My credentials, basically I'm not one of these guys that sends away hundreds of cards a year or anything like that, but I have had 10 of my 12 cards gem up, including the ones that you see in front of you right here. These are all my submissions. And so I've had a little bit of success with my limited time sending in cards to be graded, and I'll walk through my process, and hopefully you will find it useful as you assess your own cards. So the two main tools we are going to refer to today, you don't really need a lot, okay? But you need, first of all, a lot of light. Now, some people will use a jeweler's eye, or a loupe it's called, it's basically one of those circular lights to get a lot of different points of light bouncing off of their cards, and that's super useful. If you don't want to go out and buy a jeweler's eye, I certainly sympathize with that, and you can make do with what you have at home. So I have a fluorescent light. This is a fluorescent lighting in this room where I am, and this light down here is just providing a little bit of an extra bounce of light, and I'm also going to use this flashlight right here when we get to our surface portion, just to really take an extra close look at the surface of these cards. So without further ado, let's go ahead and we'll assess a few different cards. I tried to vary the types of cards that I grabbed so that we can talk about the different condition issues that you might run into with different types of cards. So we're going to start out with a couple of paper cards, paper parallels. This is a Juan Soto Rookie Cup Gold, and it is numbered to 2019. Pretty cool card, definitely one that I think fits in on the bulk submission rate. There's obviously a cap on the value of those with PSA. So I thought this would be a good one to send in. So again, this is a real time. I have not assessed these cards before other than eyeballing them in the top loaders, but you're going to want to make sure you take it out of the top loader and out of the penny sleeve. There is, of course, a risk of that. If I drop this card right now, it's not going in. If you drop a paper card, you pretty much have ruined your chances of having that gem up. So we're going to walk down. I like to start with centering. So there are different types of borders on cards. There are partial borders, there are full borders, and then there are borderless. This is a partial border card. You can see along the right and the bottom. So that is going to, if you have a full border card, you really have to make sure you have the centering right. On these Bowman ones in the back, for example, has to be perfectly centered or you're not going to gem. Has to be perfectly centered or you're not going to gem. This one here too. And this is an example. This Tatis here is pretty much borderless. I guess you could, maybe on the bottom there's a little bit of a border. So anyway, this is a little bit of eyeballing it. There are some tools out there that people use to get a good sense of the centering of the cards. I don't know how reliable those are. So I would really just try to eyeball it. And when you have a partial border card, you want to look at the border compared to the gap on any element on the card that you can see. It might be a first or the card logo or anything like that that can help you see where the border should be or would be on the card. So I'm going to get this as close as I can here so we can look at this together. Okay, so in terms of the border to the left and the right, to the left and the top of that Topps logo, that looks pretty consistent. Now compared to below here, the top compared to the bottom, it's a 60-40. So you want to have basically if 60% of the border is on one side of the card or the other, that's the maximum threshold where it can still gem up. So yeah, these partial border cards are really tough to tell. But, I feel pretty good about this one. You can maybe use these dots to be useful, but they're not even perfectly circular dots. You got to consider all of these different elements here. But I feel like if we're looking at it in the very corner here, these two borders to me look about even, maybe a little thicker on the right. And how they compare to the left, Again, you can look to the left of the name here, Juan Soto, you know, that looks about right to me. This border doesn't look terribly thin here. You know, centering, you can be forgiven a little bit on centering. It's got to just be within a certain threshold, I guess is what I would say. So you got to be careful with it. But if it's not obvious, I feel like they will err in your favor if everything else with the card is okay. And you want to consider the back too. The back is probably less important. That's a matter of some debate, I guess you could say. But it does factor in to some degree. So the bottom here looks a little bit thicker than the top. Again, this is maybe the most subjective part of assessing a card for grading is the centering. It's just so hard to tell. The left and the right look pretty even to me. The partial border here makes it really tough with all of this text here, and then you've got a stripe going down. So you really want to compare the gap to the left of the text to the gap to the right of the stripe, not the text. And, you know, I don't see anything with the centering on this one after thoroughly over-explaining that to hold it back. Okay, so let's get into the next one. The next subgrade that I like to look at are the corners. Now, this is where you're going to run into problem with gold cards and any cards that have a dark border, because if you have even a slight issue, it's going to stand out that much more. Now, one of the reasons I bought this card was I felt pretty good about the corners. I didn't see anything obvious, but that's why we take a closer look, because you just don't know for sure. I'm very sorry if the light is too harsh for the camera. I'm going to try to do what I can along the way to adjust it and make it a little bit easier to see. Let's see if that helps. Okay, so 1 second here, guys. Okay, let's see if that helps. All right, so we can kind of see along the corners here. I'm just going to try to get as close as possible. Again, it's really, really tough. You might actually find it's better to work in lower light and really just have that light blaring on the card so you can see everything that you need to see. All right, so we get the bottom right here. I don't know if it's, all right, so I don't see that. I don't think that corner is an obvious issue. You know, some people are really good with assessing the corners and they can see it really quickly. I just like to be super, super sure when we're looking at this stuff. It looks like maybe there's a little snag or, you know, tag there. It doesn't look like a perfect right angle, but it also doesn't look like a white corner to me. So I think that one would be okay. This one here looks good. I don't see anything there. And then the bottom left, sorry if I get quiet at times. I'm just trying to give you an honest and an accurate assessment. You know, that corner is so hard to tell. Let's look on here. It's hard to tell if that is the circle or if it's a very, very, very slight corner ding. Can you all see that? I can't hear you respond because this is not a live video with feedback, but yeah, I'm trying to get the focus just right. That might be a very, very slight ding right over there. And I think the light is showing it just a little. So that's maybe a little problematic. It's not the worst corner I've ever seen, but it's not perfect, okay? So that's something you want to consider. You can look on the back too. The back, if you're unsure about a corner, can give you a little bit of a clue as to whether, you know, you're actually seeing an issue or not. If it's a white corner, it can be especially hard to tell. So yeah, you want to see if the light basically bends at all. And, you know, I think maybe we see a little bit there. That's actually a different corner from the one we were looking at. So let's go over here. This was the problematic corner. Yeah, it's so hard to tell. On the white corners, I don't know if I see anything on the back that is super worrisome. Maybe getting down here with that corner, it just looks like it's a little, you know, almost, you know, bent a little bit, right? Yep, you can see it a little bit on here. Okay, so that's not a great start, but we'll move on to edges here. So I think edges tend to be more of a problem on chrome cards. I actually just like to go ahead and just feel along the edges, see if there's anything rough, see if anything feels off with the edges. And I don't feel anything on these. Like I said, on the chrome cards, you'll notice it a little bit more obviously. But, you know, this one feels pretty smooth. You'll also sometimes see with rough cuts some paper tearing, and you'll notice that more where there are darker parts of the card. The 2022 Topps Heritage cards are notorious for this. They have a black paper back on them. And unfortunately, when you have a black paper, surface, those little tears are going to be so much more obvious and so much more noticeable. I feel good about the edges on this one, though. I don't think edges would be an issue on this card. And now we go to the surface. And surface, to me, is maybe the toughest to assess. I think everybody's got their own strengths and weaknesses when looking at cards, if I'm being honest. But the surface just encompasses so many different areas. It encompasses, obviously, scratches are the most obvious, but it can also encompass, print lines, dings on the card, things like that, okay? So let's see what we got with this one. And here's where you want your light more than ever. And I'm sorry if it's a little hard to see here on the camera. I just want you to get a sense of how I look at these cards. So you want different angles. You want the light to really bounce all over the card. Just kind of look at it in as many different ways as you possibly can. Try to see every last little surface imperfection, because it doesn't matter if you miss it. The PSA people probably will not. You want to try to get a sense of whether or not it's a card issue or if it is an issue, or sorry, if it's just the background of the card. Again, sorry guys, I'm trying to do this while I'm talking to you, and that could be a little bit difficult. So I did bring out an example of a print line issue. So I pulled this card out of 2020 Topps Chrome. It's not a special card or anything, but it's Jesse Winker. And you can see right here, you might have noticed this in one of my previous videos, but you can see that print line right across the top. So here's where the light becomes useful. And so that is not a card that you would send. It's not a card you'd send anyway, but condition-wise, it's not a card you would send. And then again, you want to look at the back, and you want to just get as much light as possible on these cards as you can, and you want to see everything. You want to see just, when you get close enough to cards, especially paper cards, you see they're not really all that flat. There's like little, they raise a little bit here and there. They're a little like almost lumpy in a way when you really, really look carefully at them, and you can see the little differences in the card. I don't know how much of this is coming across on camera. I don't see too much here. I don't think that would be what holds us back. So, all right. Again, live look at these. It can be tough to talk through some of the things and see it all on camera. But, so, quick look at this card. I would say centering's fine. Edges are fine. Surface, I'm not worried about. I think that this kind of light here is, you see, there you go. You can see kind of like the lumpiness of the card, the general lumpiness of the card. This is the best light for the surface right here. And this is actually useful for the edges and the corners too, because you can just see every little thing. I don't see anything here that's a problem for the surface. But let's say you did. Let's say you have a smudge on the card. Let's say you have a little issue that you just want to take care of. You're not going to remove any scratches from the card, okay? If you came here looking for that in a panic because you have a high-value card with a scratch, I'm sorry. You might just be screwed as far as trying to get that to gem up, but enjoy your PSA 8 or 9 if you send it, okay? But if you do have something, every now and then you'll just see a smudge on the card or, a fingerprint or anything like that. You always want to wipe that off. I would always wipe off the cards that you're sending, because if you put a fingerprint on your card and that's why it doesn't gem, shame on you. You want to obviously do the best you can to take care of your card. So I would use this is a microfiber cloth. I would use a brand new microfiber cloth, not one that has been kicking around a bunch. This is the one I use for my cards. I'm just shaking it out a little in case there's any dust in there. Last thing you want is like a little grain of something getting in here and scratching up your card, because that is straight up tragic right there. So, I just kind of take it and I just do little circles around the card. Be super careful that your microfiber cloth does not snag on the edges or the corners. I tend to go from the middle out just to be extra careful that I'm not snagging those corners, and be careful that you are not bending the card either. I would recommend, however, that you hold it like I am so that you're not having it down on any kind of surface. because that can scratch up the back. You know, I think overall this card is looking pretty good. It's just a matter, so that corner in the bottom left is going to be maybe the make or break for this card. And I honestly don't have a hard decision for you on this one. I would like to give you a definitive answer. I might even go back and watch my own video just to get a sense on that. It is very slight, but there is a little bit of white there. For a gold card, though, that might still gem. It might still gem. These are tough cards, condition-wise. A lot of these just don't gem up. So this one might actually be okay. And let's say it is, okay? Here's what we're going to do. This came out of a penny sleeve. You saw me take it out of one. We're not putting it back in that penny sleeve. This is a brand new penny sleeve. Just took this out of the pack. So we're going to put it in a brand new penny sleeve very carefully, because gold cards can snag, or, you know, any paper cards can snag when you're putting them in. So that's why you'll see some people sometimes break this corner of the penny sleeve. They'll flick it or whatever, just so you avoid snags. I'm not going to do that here, but I am going to be very careful. Okay, and that one is going in. And again, you know, anybody that's been collecting for a while probably has a bunch of card savers kicking around, but you don't see anything in this one, right? That's because it's brand new. It came out of the package this morning, and I bought these yesterday. So these are brand spanking new card savers. This is like the last leg of the marathon. Don't cheap out when it comes to supplies on this stuff, guys, okay? So you want brand new everything. Just be super careful. Just bend it a little at the sides, not the card, the card saver, just to get it a little further down into the holder. Again, you don't want to damage your card here, so just be super careful. And I don't care if this is slow, right? Like, this isn't a time trial here, okay? So we have our Juan Soto in a brand new penny sleeve, in a brand new card saver. This one under a bulk submission, I might take a chance on. Now, we don't know, okay? It might gem, it might not. It doesn't matter that I bought all of these cards, or this one specifically, as singles. You know, I've had singles gem. In fact, every one of these cards up here, oh, no, I pulled the Randy. But these four here were all singles that I bought, and they all gemmed. You can gem singles. You can. It doesn't matter if you buy them on eBay or elsewhere. Just be careful. Look at the cards carefully. And this is a single, too, so it can definitely gem up. It's just a matter of that corner, and I don't have a solid answer on this. This is a solid maybe, and we will think about that one as we move on to test out other cards. All right, let's pick this back up with our next card. This one here is an Austin Riley Rainbow Foil out of 2019 Topps Update. Another single that I picked up recently. All right, let's slide it out of the penny sleeve, and we'll see what we have with this one. Okay, so I'm going to try to do this one a little bit faster. I know this video has already lasted a while. I tend to be chatty. Apologies. But hopefully you find it useful, which if you do, you know what to do. Hook me up with a like and subscribe. Do all kinds of personal rips and mail day videos, things like that. Very much enjoy doing that kind of thing. So let's dig into this Austin Riley here. Rainbow foils, you know, you're going to have some of the same issues as the golds, where they are just pretty condition sensitive. You'll notice this is another semi-border because it's from that 2019 Topps flagship set. Again, like I said, I'll try to do this one a little bit faster. So centering is, again, the first thing that I look at. And these cards are a little bit notoriously difficult. So, you know, sometimes if you're just not sure on the centering, then I would go online and take a look at some examples of cards of the one that you're looking at that already gemmed. And you might be able to find, you know, like this bat in the corner. Is it bumped over slightly? Is there some kind of indicator that is going to help you know that the centering is spot on for this card? I look at this, I eyeball it, and I don't see anything obvious. You know, we can even compare it to the Soto a little, right? So, you know, you can kind of see the two borders there. The Soto bottom border, both borders might be slightly thicker on the Soto, right? Yeah, maybe slightly. And yeah, the bottom looks a little thicker. Now, that's not necessarily a problem, okay? But, you know, just for the sake of comparison, again, I think you can be forgiven a little bit on centering, especially if there's not a clear border, you're more likely to be forgiven on centering. If you look at 2020 Bowman, which I don't think I have an example handy, but that's a product where the borders are very, very clear. And if you don't have it perfect, then you're not going to get it to gem. You see those cards are off center all the time. All right. So centering, and again, you want to look at the back. Just take a look. Anything obvious, you know, back is not as much of a concern typically as the front, and I don't see anything super obvious on that one. I would not hold this back because of the centering. Corners. Let's take a look at the corners. Again, I'll try to get super close here so we can look at them together. That corner is looking pretty good. We will take a look over here at this one. Looks pretty sharp on the bottom left. Just trying to avoid my light down here as we do this. Take a look at the top left. And here's where the rainbow foil can be kind of useful. I'm a little worried about that smudge above the Topps logo. I don't know what that is, but the corner looks good. And then up here in the top right, is this one an issue? Come on, focus for me. Yeah, that corner might be a slight issue. There we go. Yeah, it's tough. It's another one that's not super duper obvious. Yeah, I don't feel great about that corner. Especially, you know, it's contrasting with the color of the bat. Yeah, that corner is definitely a little bit of a problem. And then you want to look on the back too. So our top right corner is going to be our bottom left. So let's see if we see anything on the bottom left of this that is going to reinforce what we just saw on the top right. Yeah, it looks pretty okay, that corner. And then we'll look over here. Bottom right, top right, and top left. You know, more of a cursory check here, just if you see something that's a little off. So top right corner might be the reason to hold this one back. I feel a little worse about this top right corner than I do about the Soto bottom left. But we'll keep going. Edges are going to be a little bit more noticeable in rainbow foils. And you can kind of see on the bottom here. You'll be able to see with the refraction of the light, whether you have a rough border or not. That one overall looks pretty good. The Randy border on this one actually is worse, and it's still gemmed. So that can be an area where you can still get away with it to some degree. Yeah, you can see that corner even worse there. Yeah, that corner is definitely a little concerning, but you see it more and more as you use the light. This is why your light is so important. You want to have a nice bright light and really be able to see every imperfection that you possibly can. Good news is I feel good about the edges on this. So surface, you know, I've been looking at it as we've been assessing the card. Again, you really just want to take your time. Let me adjust the focus. There we go. And, you know, here's where you can use your nice overhead light and just kind of slowly work your way up. Again, you can just see how the card is not really super flat when you look at it even closer. Keep going up. Yeah, I don't see any obvious dings here. Now, we'll roll in some of our extra light here. Again, better safe than sorry on these. And I know the light is going to kind of throw off the video. See if there's a way to do this a little better here. Well, anyway, I hope you can all see this. If I see an issue, I will point it out and make sure we look at it on camera. Okay. I don't really see anything that's worrying me here. It seems like a card that maybe needs a little bit of a wipe down, which I always do anyway. All right, but let's look at that spot up in the top, right near the Topps logo. Now, again, this is where you want to be careful. You never know. I mean, it can always be something that's in the background of the photo, but you can see the way the light is bouncing off of this, that is almost certainly not the case here. So, you know, I see a little bit of a surface ding right there. That's your clearest look at it. And, you know, you hold the card out like this, you wouldn't necessarily see anything. You'd see, you know, a card that looks like it's in pretty good shape. So this one's probably a no. Anything at the bulk level, you know, you're talking about cards that are, what, $10, $15, $20, $30 to $50 in value. If you see any issue, you probably don't want to send it. It's probably not worth the ROI. But again, that's not what this video is about. So between that corner ding and that surface issue right there, this one for me is probably a no. Now, it's not terrible. I've seen a lot worse than this. And I've even decided to send in a card or two that I knew had a slight issue like that. And it can be a little bit of a coin flip. Like I said, that Randy on the left over there had that slight issue with the edge, and it did okay. I've sent other cards that had, you know, very, very slight issues. Actually, similar to this Soto. Had a Gleyber Torres rookie that I sent that I would not by any means send today, but I did send it. And had a very, very slight corner issue on the back. And I think they overlooked that because it was on the back. And that one gemmed. So anyway, I'm going to say no on this Riley. I'm going to take a closer look at that later, but I'm probably landing on no for the Austin Riley. Okay, so now we're moving on to Chrome cards. We have this Ronald Acuna. This is an image variation rookie cup card. I think if you've looked at my mail day videos, you've probably seen this. I just felt I was just psyched about the value on this card. Unfortunately, looking at it now, I can already see maybe an issue or two. First is centering. The bottom to me looks a little thin compared to the right. You can kind of eyeball that and see it a little bit, right? The right is pretty thick. Unfortunately, we don't have like a great anchor on the left here to compare to the right. The spot to the left of Ronald Acuna's name is probably our best bet, and it looks a little bit thinner than the right. Now, how much of an issue that would be, I'm not 100% sure, but I don't feel great about this, the difference between the thickness here and here. The right looks thicker than the bottom. So that's not great. We'll take a look at the back. And the back would be, all right, so the bottom was thinner than the, so the right would be thinner than this. Okay. So we're comparing the how thin the top is above the 117 compared to the bottom. That actually seems okay to me. That's not so bad. And then this compared to that actually looks okay too. So the back, not super worried about. All right, let's look at the corners. Now, Chrome corners are typically going to be in better shape than paper. They're harder to ding, not impossible to ding. They are not made of adamantium or any other fake Marvel metal like vibranium or anything like that. These corners look pretty good. You know, again, you want to be careful. They can be dinged. They can have slight issues. Use your light again. So is that something that we would be concerned about? You see that very slight issue right there. I think the light is hitting it. That might be something to be concerned about. Oh, it is very, very slight. But that could be the kind of thing that stops you from sending a card like this. Hard to say. Down here, same kind of deal. You know, that one to me looks better. I'm not worried about that corner. Up in the top left, let's see. Yeah, we look okay there. And in the top right, yeah, that looks okay too. All right, but now let's get into some other spots. Again, edges with Chrome can be a little tough. It's a thicker card to cut through, and I can feel that the edge down here is a little rougher. Let's use our light and see what we find. So I'll hold the card like this, but you know what? It looks pretty flat. I actually don't really see any major issues there on the edges now that I'm looking at it. Maybe you can probably see this one right here. Just a very, very slight nick. But I don't think that one's a problem. Usually with the Chrome cards, you see them at the bottom and the top if you're going to have an issue. But here I think is the biggest issue with the card, and that is surface. I did see a print line looking at this a little bit closer. Where is this? Let me find this print line. Yeah, you can kind of see it right there in the red of Ronnie's sock. You see that? Let me get that again. Yeah, there's a little bit of a print line there, or it could be no, it's definitely a print line. It runs up further. So it's not a scratch. Yeah, you can see the print line right there, right in the middle of the tomahawk part. And do we see it anymore? I'm trying to, okay. Yeah, and I don't know how much of this is coming across on camera, but I can see it up here in the helmet as well. Maybe even a little bit of a horizontal scratch going on there. But certainly, if you can see in the part of his wristband, not a wristband, but whatever that is, the wrist support there. You know, you can see it run through there. Yeah, you can see that on camera. So there's a pretty definable print line running through this card. And, you know, it's a bummer when you see that and everything else looks pretty good. But, you know, for me, sorry about that, everyone. Again, for me, that would be cause to not send it in. This card's a little bit more valuable than a few of the others that we were looking at. So, you know, maybe you can still send it in and see some ROI at a PSA 9 return. But, you know, assuming you only want to see gems come back, you know, you have to... Sorry about that. I keep hitting the camera. If we only want to see PSA 10s come back, this to me would be one that I would not send, which is fine. This is one that I kind of intended to keep as a PC card. So that is what we will do with that one. So we've got, so far, we've got 2 no's and 1 maybe. So that's not what I would be hoping for. Okay, everyone, sorry for the interruption, but that is what editing is for. Let's get back into our assessment. We've got Tristan Cash's first Bowman Chrome Refractor. Those of you that watch my mail day videos know that I picked up a few of these back a little while ago. And, you know, this is the one that I grabbed because in the top loader, it looked pretty good from a centering standpoint. So already we're off to a pretty good start here. You can see this is more of a full border card, which is common with Bowman. And really the thickness all the way around, to me, looks pretty good. Again, that is pretty subjective, but this one looks pretty solid to me. Take a look at the back as well. I think I've got 11 of these cards that I'm going to be assessing. I'm only doing one here. I won't put you through that torture to watch me assess all 11 of these. But, you know, this one, from a centering standpoint, looks pretty good. So let's move on to the corners. Again, it's a chromium card, so I feel pretty good in terms of the fact that the corners should be pretty sharp here. Don't see anything obvious just yet. That might be a little smudge that we have to deal with, but we're not talking surface yet. Let's look at this corner. Also looks pretty sharp. Again, when in doubt, just get a little bit of extra light on there. Make extra sure that it is good to go. And that corner also looks good. Any issues on the back? You know, again, the darker corners are the ones that you're going to want to pay extra close attention to. All right, so maybe that's a slight issue. Is that on the side or is it on the corner? It's so hard to tell. That one might be borderline. Yeah, that one is tough. It looks like it might be more on the edge than on the corner. So that one might be okay. In the white corners, you know, I think you're generally going to get or see fewer issues, although I do kind of see one here. I see another issue that I'll point out in a minute. Can I get the light to reflect this? Let me see. Yeah, you can kind of see down in that corner, that might be a slight issue. So that would be something that might stop me from sending this one in. So corners, couple of concerning spots there. Edges, you know, again, I just like to feel them first, see if I feel anything obvious. Yeah, right here. So here we go, right? So this is why, you know, I think it's eyeball test for a lot of this stuff, but then sometimes when you're feeling the card, you can notice some problems. And I think this one, it's hard to tell. It's right where this diagonal meets the regular border. I'm trying to get this for you so you can see it. Yeah, you can kind of see right there. Yeah, right there. So that is an issue. And now let's do surface. So this is where I expected to maybe run into issues. Again, Bowman, you know, is kind of common for print lines. So, and when you have backgrounds like this that are kind of just very, very generic, whenever you see more of the chrome fill in the backgrounds, just leaves more opportunities for a ding or something like that to stand out. And so let's just look, and we'll just very quickly go over the, so there we see a couple of scratches right over here. Now those are the kind of things that might buff out. You know, you never know for sure until you take your microfiber cloth and try it out. But no, that is still there. So there's one surface issue, and I think I see a ding right over here. Let's see if the light hits it. Can we see it? Yes, kind of right there. That looks like a slight surface ding, not a big one. Were we able to buff that out? All right, that might have buffed out okay. So you never know. You know, if you have a deeper scratch, you kind of just might be stuck with that. This is the kind of card that typically I'd spend a lot more time wiping down. Time is your friend when you're talking about, do I want to grade this card or not? Spend more time with it. But I'm going to tell you, this one, unfortunately, is not going to pass the test for me because there is a print line on the back as well. Where is it? Let me find it. I think it's right where the average, no, it's right where the 1 in the OPS is. So just keep an eye on that spot there. Let me see if I can bring that out for all of you on here. Maybe with the flashlight. Maybe this will help reveal it. It's a little tricky to see, but there is a little bit of a print line situation there. Yeah, oh, there you go. You see it at the bottom. You see that? Where the gray and the border is meeting? That's running straight up through the card. Now you can see it. Runs straight up through the card. So those are some print lines on the back. Now, can you get away with print lines on the back? Maybe. But when we already have an edge/surface issue here, my fingerprints on the card, but that's not much of an issue anymore. We can wipe those off. This is a no. You know, it's not going to pass the grade. This might be an 8, you know. And when we're talking about ultra-modern cards, if you're not getting a 10 back, then, you know, it just might not be worth the ROI. So we're going to say that's another no. All right, we've got one more left to go. Again, those of you that watched my mail day videos probably saw this one. I got a lot of 3 Curtis Mead cards, all refractors, all numbered refractors. This is the lava refractor. So I'm going to assess both of the Curtis Mead cards that I have left. I sold one of them because it was just the centering was off. The centering on this one looks better. So partial border card, but it's got 3 borders. So it gives us a pretty good sense of where we're at. Basically, we want to compare the top here to the bottom here. That's where I've seen most of the issues with these particular Bowman cards. And, you know, I don't really see any problems from that standpoint. Looks pretty good. Maybe slightly thick on the top, maybe. But I think the centering is okay here. Certainly from that perspective. To the right of the first Bowman is going to be where that imaginary sort of border is, running down through where the team logo is. So is that slightly thick on the right? Maybe. But, you know, if that's the thing that's going to prevent it from gemming, that seems unlikely to me. So I'm not too worried about that. From a centering perspective, I think this passes muster. Okay, let's talk about corners. Let's see what we got. Is that a very slight ding there? Let's use our light. No, I think that's okay. All right, and we'll take a look down here too. Think we're looking okay. All right. Look up in the top left corner. Bring this slightly closer. I don't want to ding the card anywhere. That looks okay, though. An edging issue, maybe, to keep an eye on. And we'll take a look at the top right as well, in that borderless corner. Yeah, to be honest, I think that's fine. I don't think that's an issue there. So corners look good to me. Did not look at the centering in the back. We'll take a quick look. Come on, focus. There we go. I don't really notice anything crazy. The top's a little thin, but I think it's just a little thin. I don't think that's anything that would prevent it. First corner I noticed where we might have a slight problem. Is this going to show it? Come on. Okay, so is that a potential issue? Maybe, you know, but again, this is the kind of thing that on the back you might get forgiven for. It's really the issues on the front where it's super obvious or where, you know, you're going to definitely run into trouble. Just to compare, yeah, I don't think that carries through. So I think this one is going to be okay from the corner perspective. We'll just take another look. Is that a ding up there? You know, some stuff I'm seeing on the camera, some stuff I'm seeing in person. So sorry, I'm trying to assess it from both perspectives. Yeah, it is tough to say for sure. That might be a slight corner ding up in the top left. Yeah, you can kind of see it there. So that worries me a little. Let's look down here in the bottom left. You know, you can kind of see the light reflecting something, but I don't really see much in person. It's still a sharp corner. That one might be okay. This one, it's the same kind of deal. You know, I wonder if this was maybe in a value pack that this was pulled out of, because you just see some very, very slight corner issues a little bit all the way around. So a little worried about that. We'll test out our edges. We'll just do kind of the feel test here. Feels pretty good all the way around. Is this an issue? It's a little rough right here. Sorry, I'm missing it a little, almost a snag. You can see it right there. A little bit of a snag maybe. And let's look at the surface. I think I did notice maybe a print line. So let's take a look. This would not be a good record today if I went 0 for 4 with a maybe. But, you know, this is why you do this, because do you want to send these and then have them come back 9s? You know, I mean, maybe you don't care about 9s. 9s are really a great grade. So let me instead say, do you want these to come back in 8? Because I don't think anybody really enjoys 8s all that much unless we're talking vintage. All right, let's take a quick look. Yeah, so that is a slight ding right there, you know, and you can even feel that one. So, you know, it's a surface / edge issue. You can see I just got my fingerprints on the cards. Always wipe those off, but you can also see the print line right here. Come on, focus. Okay, so it's kind of running up through that first Bowman logo. Can you all see that? I hope you can. So it's not through the player. If it was running through the player, I think that's even worse. It's just, you know, it's that much more noticeable. Do we see any other surface issues? Let's go ahead and use our light to our advantage here. And we'll just very quickly look. Do we see anything? You don't necessarily want to look at the light when you're doing this. You want to look around the light, because as it gets brighter and darker, you see some things start to emerge, like this ding over here. Watch when we just start to hit it with the light, just a little, it starts to stand out a little bit. That's where you'll notice some problems. So that's his button. Okay, I was not sure if we had a potential issue, or is that not? Nope, there's a little, okay, so above the button, there's a little fleck of something right there. We might be able to get that off. Let's see. Just do a quick wipe. And you can apply a little bit of pressure here. Don't be too afraid of that, so it's not coming off. You know, sometimes you just kind of like manipulate it a little bit with your finger and then just try to wipe it off, because, you know, again, you want to be careful. You don't want to make it worse, but also if you can't send it with the thing on, then you might as well try something, right? All right, I think we took care of it. I think that might have gotten it. Let me make sure on the camera. I don't see anything there anymore. Okay, and you want to be careful with refractors like this, or like shimmers. The lava can sometimes look like a ding or an issue, or it can obscure issues. You just want to be super, super sure what it is that you're looking at when you're assessing your cards. So, all right, this one is probably a no for all the reasons we mentioned. I'm definitely still seeing that print line over here. There's definitely a ding on the corner. Yeah, this one's not going to gem. So, you know, I mean, could it get a 9? Maybe, you know, maybe it would. But it is not, in my opinion, going to get a 10 unless you get super lucky. You know, maybe you put the odds at like 10% that you get a 10, and that's not worth it. It's not worth sending in that circumstance. Now, I got a great deal on these cards, okay? I could send this and get a PSA 9 and probably profit on this card, but it's not going to be a 10, so I'm more inclined to just sell it raw, call it near mint condition, which it is. I wouldn't say that it's anything worse than that. And just kind of, you know, take your lumps when it's not good to go. So, look, this is not necessarily indicative of how all of my assessments go. I'm not overly harsh on my cards, but I'm realistic about them. So I set aside 5 to assess today, and we'll just quickly recap. Curtis Mead is a no for the corner ding and the print line. Tristan Cassius had a few issues throughout. The centering was good, but definitely a couple of surface issues there. The Acuna also had a print line, maybe a slight centering issue. And the Austin Riley had the ding up at the top right there, which you can see above the Topps logo. And also a very slight corner ding up here. These I would all call near mint. They're probably 8s or 9s. So I'm not going to take the chance on those most times. The Soto, I'm going to look at very, very closely again before I send it, because this corner is kind of the make or break. You can kind of see it. It is very, very slight. You know, when you start to see little flecks of dust popping up, you get a sense of how minute that spot is compared to other paper-based cards that really, really fleck easily. I can't quite get to an example here. This one is a maybe. I'm going to lean towards sending this. I'm going to call it a yes. We have it in our card saver. This one will probably go, and if it ends up part of my PC as a 9, that's fine. I mean, it's a great card. Love this card. Second year Soto, you know, so it's still a great card. Probably will send that. These 4 are going to go back in top loaders, and they'll either be part of my PC or they will, you know, be listed for sale as raw cards. The Acuna and the Cassius might be part of the PC. The Mead and the Riley, you know, might be cards that I move. So, you know, again, be your own harshest critic when it comes to this stuff. If you see a flaw, I guarantee you the PSA grader will see that flaw and more, okay? So don't think you're going to sneak anything by them. You're not. It's not going to happen, okay? On top of that, like I said, use all your light. Did not end up using the flashlight quite as much because we have such great light down here. But anything that's going to help you identify any flaw in your card, you definitely want that. And then, like I said, time is your friend. Take extra time. Be slow. Be methodical when you're looking through these cards. And also super careful that you don't drop any of them while you're assessing them. And happened to a friend of mine. You can take your own cards out of contention that way. So hope that gives you a few things to think about. I hope you found this useful. If you did, if you enjoyed the video, hook me up with a like and subscribe, and we'll have some more fun again soon.